Okay, so now let's take a look at truth number 8 for our foundation series. First, let's review the 4 truths of 201. We've already seen the first 3. We live to honor God, and the Bible guides us to do that, and the Spirit leads us to do that. And here's the 4th truth. Community builds us. We need each other to do this. Look at what it says in Ephesians 4. Paul says we should lead a life worthy of our calling, for we have been called by God. And look at what he says in verse 2. Always be humble and gentle, be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. See, the reality of the Christian life, and we've already seen this, is you're not perfect. You're going to mess up. You're going to screw up. You're not always going to perfectly honor God in your life. But this is why we need community. This is why we need each other, to encourage one another, to build each other up, to make sure that we're spurring one another on to honor God with our lives. Paul said it in Galatians 6 like this, Dear brothers and sisters, if any believer is overcome by some sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. And be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself. Share each other's burdens, and in this way you obey the law of Christ. Remember, we define sin as going your own way, following your own path. And look at what Paul is saying here. When someone veers off the path, help them back on. We need each other to help each other back on the path. And look at what he says in verse 2. When we do this, we're obeying the law of Christ. Now, we'll talk more about that later, but look at how he says it in Ephesians 4. He says, we will speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ. See, the reality is, we need each other if we want to grow to be like Christ. And that's why we should stay in community with each other. We should keep connected to one another. Hebrews 10 says, let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. See, we need each other. Community builds us. That's why we've encouraged you to do this with someone else, at least one other person, and hopefully as a group. And as a group, you should continue to grow together, even beyond foundations. And we'll give you some more tips for that as we continue along. But for right now, why don't you hit pause and talk about it, and then we'll see you in the next video.